Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have a very special episode for you today. I have my friend, Jill Bryan, in the studio. Jill and I have been in the same business mastermind. I don't know. It feels like 2 years now-ish. I'm not in this current group, but we were in there together.
At least.
For about 2 years. And we are both divorced. I'm still divorced. I'm just remarried also.
There you go.
And then I know we've connected several times kind of around our stories. And welcome, Jill. It's really a pleasure to hang out with you today. Please tell
Thanks for asking me.
Absolutely. Tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Hi. So I am Jill Allison Bryan. I am a creativity coach. My business is Creative Oasis Coaching, and I help people with personal and professional creative dreams to actually get those dreams out of their head and into the world. So often they'll just be spinning in our mind for a long time, and we don't act on them because of procrastination, perfectionism, overwhelm, inner critic voices, all of those type things. And so I help people move past those blocks and actually turn their creative visions into their reality.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. So good.
It's a lot of fun.
So good. I know. It sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know. I'm not going to start asking you for coaching on here because I definitely do not have a belief that I am an artist in any way. And I'm pretty sure that's not true, but it's that's not the work I'm doing right now.
but even I would say so some of the people I coach might be to help them start their podcast.
Right.
Because actually that's a very creative endeavor. So it's not just artists and musicians and dancers. It's landscape and coaches who want to host an event or want to start a podcast or have fun creating content for social media, that kind of thing.
Oh, yes. I love that. Well, thank you for being here. So we're here to really talk a little bit about how you started your business and your divorce and your financial journey. Mm-hmm. After the divorce. And I know typically we have dating questions and dating topics on this podcast, but I really resonated when you wrote about, working so hard to not lose your home during your divorce. And I was just like, oh my God, we have all got to hear this story. I know it's not a dating story, but I'm sure there's a dating lesson in there somewhere.
Yeah. I think so. I think because I think the crux of the story is believing in yourself and me growing my belief in myself and my confidence to the point of being able to take what had been a part-time business and a side, almost a hobby kind of a thing for many years. And all of a sudden be faced with, okay, all of the income that my partner had been making to pay for everything went away completely. Wow. So after 20 years plus out of the 9-to-5 workforce, I had to make a choice. How will I, provide for myself and my daughter? And I really love our neighborhood and love our house. And that was one of my kind of guiding lights. I was like, okay, I'm going to do what it takes to stay. What will I need to do to stay in this house? And one of the first choices I had to make was, am I going to go get some other kind of job? I don't know what that would look like. Am I going to work in retail? Am I going to try to go into the corporate world somehow? Because it had been, again, 25, 30 years since I had worked in advertising as a copywriter. And that whole world had changed so dramatically. I didn't see that, but I had been coaching and I had been a coach for a decade, but again, it had just been a part-time kind of a situation, and I wasn't dependent on the money. It was like extra money and money for vacations and schools and that kind of thing. And so when I decided to go for it and basically just double down on believing that I could build my coaching business to the point that it would provide for everything, that's what I did. And the reason why I shared the post is because a lot of times people just saw the outside end result of that. Oh, like Jill is still in her house. That's very cool that she was able to do that. And I wanted to share that I really had to go through, I really had a lot of shame around
Mm-hmm.
staying in the marriage for too long. I felt,
Yeah.
and fear that I wouldn't be able to do it, doubt that I was going to be able to do it. And, and those are all normal feelings to have, but so often they're the feelings that just stop us. So we just don't even try.
Mm.
And I think the benefit for me, and you'll understand this, was coaching, was that I
Yeah.
knew that if I invested in managing my mind, that that was really the only thing that was going to help me
Yes.
to get
Yeah.
past this and keep with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, just same thing in business as in dating. The steps themselves are not like showstoppers,
Right.
right? The step about, okay, marketing your business and asking someone to buy or to pay you, or getting on an app and then swiping and then going on that date. Like those steps themselves are like very physical, very clear cut. This is the very next step. It's
Right.
what's going on in our heads that gets in the way.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think even having this, and this was all new to me. I mean, because the creativity coaching that I was certified in, and I'm a master creativity coach, and then I've been doing that for a long time. There was we talked about mindset and blocks and that kind of thing. But this idea that I learned in the coaching that I had been working with in the most recent years, 3 to 4 years, that I could see so clearly that my thoughts were affecting the way I felt, and that was affecting the
Mm-hmm.
way I would show up or not show up to any given situation. And even the grace to see that fear and doubt and are just your brain's way of trying to protect you and
Yeah.
keep you safe, because even though it's not the situation you want to be in, uh it's the most usual. It's the one that you've been doing the longest, so it's the most comfortable to you. And just being able to see that almost scientifically, like experimentally, was like,
Yeah.
oh, interesting. This makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your very first step? So you had it like a hobby that was bringing a little bit of side money.
Right.
Did you realize just what the journey might look like to get to, I'm bringing a whole full-time income, or like what
No.
was going on? Like, because I don't think the gap there is pretty wide.
Well, it's very wide. And it's so interesting that we're having this conversation today, because you know how Facebook pops up memories?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes memories we don't want.
Right. Right.
Oftentimes. But today it was a memory from 4 years ago in October, whatever that year was, that 2018, I guess. Yes.
Yes.
And it was a retreat that I was holding in Colorado. And so back then I was doing all these different things. I would do workshops, I would do groups in my house, I would do retreats, like destination retreats and retreats in my home. And it was just like I was hustling and scrambling for like, how can I do this? How can I make something happen with my coaching business? And I was certainly not making well, that was the very kind of beginning of the journey. So like not enough to even cover 2 months probably of my
Mm-hmm. How
bills.
long after the divorce was that? Like, was
So that was
2018?
right. That was, we had been separated a full year and divorced a full year.
Okay.
And so, but that was about the time that it was becoming apparent that like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm going to have to change something. And I think it was that next beginning of next year, maybe, that I found a coach that specializes in helping coaches sell coaching. And so I started working with her, or entered her program with the thought and desire, okay, this is going to be
Mm-hmm.
the first step to figuring out what I need to do to make this a viable business. And it's interesting because I tell this story about meeting with my a financial advisor to say, okay, this is the situation, like no child support, no alimony, like this has all gone
Yeah.
away. And I want to stay in the house. And she's like, okay, yeah, what's your plan?
Nice.
And
Like,
she
this is
meant
what
it
I
like,
pay you for.
yeah, she just meant it very like, but, but I remember just thinking like, what is my plan? And I said, and it was like an out of body experience. Like there's Jill sitting at the table with her financial advisor person, and she's up here, and I saw the words coming out of my mouth. I'm going to grow my coaching business into a full-time career. And she's like unfazed,
Oh, I
unflappable. She goes,
love
oh yeah, I can
that.
totally, you'll do great. That'll be awesome. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what? Really? You think so? Like, I have no idea how this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing I want to offer is that we don't have to know. And I think, that, again, this is probably true with dating or business. We don't have to know exactly how we're going to
Mm-hmm.
do it, like what the steps are, how many people we're going to have to date, or how many,
Yep.
coaches we're going to have to work with, or how many offers we're going to have to try, or decisions we're going to need to make. The more important thing is to decide ahead of time, right? I want to
Yep.
have this successful business doing something that I love. I want to have a healthy relationship. Like making that
Yeah.
decision and really committing to it was the changing point for me, I think.
Yes. I think that was something that I had to when I was dating. Was it just never occurred to me to like not be married again? I was like, no, I love the whole concept of marriage and things like. I just
so that was probably really helpful to you, right?
Yeah,
Because I've been a little on the fence about it. Like I could take it or leave it at
I
this
know.
point, I
Technically, listeners, Jill is not yet remarried, so she is different from a lot of the guests that I usually have, but that's okay.
But I have been in a long-term relationships, and after that, I did that. So yeah.
But what I've told a lot of people is like being on the fence is the worst thing. Not necessarily the way you are. It's in the sense that a lot of people won't make the decision, but they're spending a lot of time thinking about it. You've been building your business. So, and that's kind of the phrase I use. I'm like, listen, if you're not sure you even want a husband, don't spend all this time listening to webinars and like, don't do all that. Go do something that you are sure you actually want. There's so many things that we can do. Marriage is not like the end all be all.
Right.
You can go back and get a PhD. You can start a business. You can travel the world. You can climb the corporate ladder, get fit, become an athlete, become an artist. Like just decide what your best life looks like with or without a partner. Like just go full force into that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been great for me. I've used the words, excuse me, that it was like I got pushed out of the nest, but that's really, the cliche is true because that's when I learned I could fly on my own, right? I didn't know that before. And so seeing that picture of me with these other women at this retreat and knowing where I am now, like that I'm a 6-figure business owner and that's all happened in 4 years time.
Yeah.
Is just so empowering. And so I do love telling this story because I want to be an example of what's possible. And I do meet women who feel trapped, even if they don't feel trapped in like, even if they're in a happy relationship, they may feel like they don't have the autonomy to make decisions about what they want to do in their creative life or their life in general. But if they want to write a book or start a podcast or start a business or whatever it is, it's very dependent on either what their partner thinks or what their children need from them. And they don't have that autonomy. And I kind of had that autonomy thrust upon me, but now I'm so grateful that I did because I know what I'm capable of now.
Yeah. And I mean, we're all capable of that. And it's interesting that you talked about that autonomy because we're just socialized that way as women. That everybody comes first. Your marriage comes first and your husband comes first and your kids come first. And you get to have your endeavors when they're okay. Well, I have young adults now. Right. If I was waiting for them to leave home and go to college before I did something, I would still be waiting because they are still in my DMs.
Yes, absolutely. And let me offer this. I work with some people who are either nearing or in retirement. And guess what? After you've been living your life under that assumption for decades, it doesn't just go away because you retire.
Yes.
It's still there. So that's where that programming or habitual thinking really needs to be addressed head on. And then it's so sad because really then guilt comes because people will be like, okay, now I have the money and I have the time. Why am I not doing the things that I want to do? I should be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I can tell them very non-judgmentally, oh, it makes so much sense. You've been living this other way your whole life. It's not all just going to change overnight because one circumstance changed of you being retired now.
Yeah, because all the thoughts are still there. All the thoughts are still there. If you are over functioning with your children, you will continue to over function with them and with your grandchildren.
And then your grandchildren, right?
You'll be looking for something to help them with or worrying about their next step instead of being like, so the work is the same, whether you're in a relationship, out of a relationship, whatever age you are, the work of saying, I believe in myself and I have a gift and I want to do this.
Oh, and one word that's so empowering. It seems like a simple word, but I share it a lot and I can see the light bulb go off sometimes over people's heads, especially women, is permission. Like giving themselves permission to ask, what do I want?
Yes.
Just that, asking that one question and giving themselves permission to think about it and really decide and then prioritize it. That's what I help so many people with, because again, there's like this kind of expectation. We kind of beat ourselves up of like, oh, well, I know what I want to do. Though why am I not doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you find, and I don't want to use the word triggers is too strong a word, but like did anything from the marriage impact you while you were building your business? Because building a business is quite an emotional process.
Yeah. Well, I think, on the positive side, I was very, very motivated, right? I was very motivated to be independent, to stay in the house, to provide, not only to provide for my daughter, but to be an example of what was possible to her, that we didn't need, anybody else to take care of us, that we could do this. And I mean, can you ask the question one more time?
Did you have any you could say an emotional flashback, or like just emotions that were still coming from having gone through a divorce that would impact you in the business? Because like you talked about the shame of the business at the house.
Right. I think the shame part was feeling like, fraud may be a little strong, but we did have, like many people, an outwardly facing, oh, that's a great, good marriage, they have a cool life or whatever. And so kind of feeling like, well, that wasn't true. So if I was showing up like, so I think I was very aware of, or I was maybe even afraid of, like that same kind of feeling was going to transfer to my business. Like, oh, you were pretending in a way, like you were forward facing that you were in a happy marriage. Are people going to think you're forward facing that you're like, oh yeah, and I have this business or whatever, when I really did love it. And so just, again, all of these kind of deep or very clarifying processes with really getting real with your thoughts that just hadn't been there before for me, but have been so empowering.
Yeah. What was your answer to that? Like, if your brain was like, okay, well, you gave one picture here. And now if you post something about your business, people are just going to think it's just another, like, how did you answer that?
I mean, I think you go through phases of like, what is the phrase that I'm thinking of? There's that, you create a certain amount of success, right? And then you don't feel comfortable with it until you do. And then it's like, then you feel more comfortable to talk about it aloud. It's like, I wasn't faking it until I made it, but there was a little bit, right, of I had been doing this business part-time for so long. So I think I had a leg up in that instance, and that it was already in existence and I didn't create it out of thin air, but I had to present, it as if it was a success and was going to be a success even before it was the level of success I wanted it and needed it to be. And so that probably felt a little wobbly for a while, and then until it didn't. And then I felt strong at a certain income level and a certain client level. And then again, you grow a little bit more. And then once again, you kind of question. I think it's just growth. I think it's normal growth that you have to kind of success intolerance. That's the word I was looking, the phrase that I was looking for. We have a little bit of like, wait, did I just create that?
Yeah.
Huh? And I'm going to do it again, because that's the other thing, right? It's like, once I had the income coming in that I was replacing even more than what we had been making with our, family support, I was like, oh, and now this is going to keep happening. That's just that.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's just something that the brain, it's just a normal process where it's like, we have to remind ourselves that when we're doing something new, different, like dating or starting a business, it's like, we have to remember that it's new. Right. We're literally picking ourselves up and putting ourselves in a new universe. It's like when you move into a new home or you move into a new city, like you don't know where anything is. It feels off.
Right.
People actually tend to experience a little bit of anxiety in the transition.
Right.
I remember moving to a new city at one point and I didn't know where the Walmart was. And then when I found the Walmart, I hated the Walmart because I didn't know where any of the food was.
Right.
Right. Like all of that, I think, but because we're quote unquote adults, we think we're expected to just be able to handle whatever without our brain freaking out at all.
Right. I love quote unquote adults.
I know. Well, I mean,
I feel the same way. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, because and same thing with dating. Like if you've been married, like I was for 17 years, and I didn't date for 17 years. Like
right,
that's a whole lifetime.
23 years.
It's so that's a lifetime to be in a relationship, to have this life, and then you come out and you're in this whole new life where it's like, okay, now I gotta go on dates and I gotta be on apps, and apps didn't even exist then. And so expecting ourselves to do something new and something big without experiencing any kind of fear or anxiety or disappointment or any kind of negative emotion is not realistic.
I think that's another thing that coaching has helped me to see. I knew it on an intellectual level, but then really to see, and it's very helpful with my clients too, is remembering that, failure is part of everything. I mean, it's just part of life. Nothing has gone wrong if a mistake happens or if something doesn't go the way we think it's going to. And where we really get tripped up is when we expect that whatever it is that we're doing, our dating journey or our business, is going to go in best case scenario every day, no matter what. And then some little blip happens and we're like, oh no, it's never going to work.
Yeah. I literally had this conversation with a client yesterday. So we've been working together for about 5 months and she's had like some amazing dates with some really, really great guys. Interestingly, she's actually she's a filmmaker. So she's an artist as well. And then she had 2 dates in a row where she was like, I mean, on paper, they were the same as the caliber of guys that she had met on all her other dates. But she was like the energy. She said one of them actually gave her like creepy vibes. And then the other one, and so she felt like she was like not doing it right anymore. Like, I was doing it right. I was having these great dates with men who could be my partner, just hadn't found the one. And now I have these 2 guys that are like definitely creepy vibes. And so she thought she was doing something. And I was like, I think you're fine. I think they just happen to be good on paper. And you're doing it right because you picked up on the vibes immediately on the first date. And like, you're not like, this is exactly how it's supposed to go. Or you just keep going.
Right. That you're not trying to make it work. Like trying to talk yourself into how the cool parts are really cool enough to make up for the creepy parts, right? Like you might in the beginning or before she worked with you, right?
Yeah. Like in the past, actually, before she worked with me, she was meeting, it was like terrible. Terrible guy. That's usually the way it goes when people work with me. Yeah. And I can see how that makes people not want to date. It's just that you have the worst people. This is the benefit of dating apps. On one hand, people who you would never come in contact with in the real world have access to you in a terrible way. And on the other hand, people that you wouldn't have had access to otherwise in an amazing way are also on the apps. Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, sadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
Okay, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
So a lot of the work we do is like, okay, how do we make sure you're only connecting with these people while you're on the apps so that you're having a great experience? And like your 30 dates to meet your guy are all good dates versus having to say I've had 30 terrible dates with people I would never have had coffee with. Like, no, that's not what we do. What we're doing is swinging it to 30 dates with the really good guys. And there's a way
You're
that we
up
do
leveling the entire process, sounds like.
Yeah. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, the app is just a tool, like email. The app is not going to deliver to you the man. Like, I know, right? I wish, like, you got to learn how to use the tool in a way that makes it work. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
So something else you just said a minute ago about taking the time that it takes, and failure and success and the success and tolerance and kind of learning that growth. I think for one thing, I had the same thoughts in business. It's like, oh, I had a great month, and then a month where I didn't sign any new clients. And I'm like, well, okay. Oh shoot. Like, should I quit? Is everything?
It's over. Yeah, this is it.
And so thankfully, this is why we get coached, right? And this is why we're working with coaches who can help us get coaching to say, no, business goes like this. It goes up and down. It doesn't get better and better and better and better with no failures every single time. Things are always iterating and changing and going up and down in their seasons. And with my clients, I like to, I use the analogy of learning a language, because if you could want to learn Spanish and be able to quickly maybe learn enough to order something at a restaurant. And then it would be the next level to be able to ask directions from somebody. And then it would take another level to be able to have some sort of a conversation where you really could understand each other. And then bilingual is yet another level on that. So as we're learning to be able to show up and as the creative person we want to, and make the things happen that we want to, that it takes time to like learn these new practices and then start practicing them and then integrate them until it becomes, well, I just had a client tell me the other day, one of her things in her check-in she shared was like, I feel like I've fully integrated creativity into my daily life. And I never thought that would be
that's so good.
An option for me. So yeah, but it takes time.
Yeah, I love that. And actually that sparked a question, like, other than the money, which money is nice. And of course, after divorce, most of us, definitely need to like figure out some money in some ways.
Yeah.
How has creativity and your business been like part of your best life and your healing after divorce? Like, what else did it give you other than the money?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, so I for years, I have been teaching workshops a few times a year at a place in Dallas called the Creative Arts Center of Dallas. And it's a very cool place where you could learn everything from welding to mosaics to jewelry making to painting, drawing, anything. And I started doing some volunteer work for them. Like I would say my life just started opening up because I was getting out in other way and I had time to do other things. And so I volunteered to help with a fundraiser. And this was also like in 2020. And I really saw that we needed to broaden our horizon of who we were inviting in to be part of the Creative Arts Center. And I really started making this conscious effort to meet new people and new artists and go to new parts of Dallas and everything that I hadn't before. And it's like my friend circle and my life circle has changed because I have this whole new set of friends who are artists, gallery owners, curators, BIPOC, LGBTQ. And it's like my life is so much more colorful and creative and beautiful than it was before. I just have this like circle of new connections and people in my life that I never would have had I stayed
Yeah.
in the relationship that I was in, or if that's all I was focused on. And so I would say, in addition to the money, the creative connections has just been, which are human connections,
Yeah. Yeah.
has
And in
been
the end, those are
beautiful.
the things that are the most meaningful. We don't get
Absolutely.
our system and our culture is always like, okay, money and like all these things, which, we need that. But I
We need
think
that, right?
we do need reminders that like, it's about the human connections. It's about people.
Mm-hmm.
It's about relationships. Like that's what matters the most, and healthy relationships, because it's
Healthy
not just the numbers.
Yeah. Oh, so boundaries, that's maybe another thing that there's a kind of a parallel with. The more I learned healthy boundaries post-divorce and dating, how I wanted to show up in dating relationships, I think once you know how to ask for and hold healthy boundaries, you can apply that in business too. Like, like not with your clients, with in both sides of that. I think that was something that was also empowering and something that was able to be strengthened on my own.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I mean, I always tell my clients like dating is a container for a whole lot of growth as a person. A business is also that kind of container. Like there's just so much growth that comes, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but in that is the growth. Like if we slow down enough to learn the lessons along the way, it's an amazing container for a lot of personal growth as well.
Absolutely. I think one of the fun things that my clients find when they come to work with me, ostensibly, again, to either help them finally create this personal or professional creative project or passion or idea that they have, and they're actually want to do it. So that's why they come to me. But then the tools and the techniques and the methods that we learn to help them with their mindset, to help them with their confidence, to help them with move past these blocks, the ripple effect of knowing how to show up for their creative projects that way shows up in their, if they have a different job, in their job or in their relationships with their partner or with their children or with their friends. And they're kind of like, hey, I used this thing, for boundaries over here, and it works well over here too. I'm like, yeah, that's just bonus.
Yeah, amazing. Jill, thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Absolutely.
Can you tell the listeners kind of like what kind of programs do you have available and where they can find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, thank you. So you can find my website at creativeoasiscoaching.com. And I work with people as a one-on-one coach for 6 months. And I have a cohort that is a small group coaching container that I usually have 2 of those going on at any one time. I also offer free master classes just to get to know me and the work, usually once every month or 6 weeks, something like that. And I'm on Instagram at Creative Oasis Coach.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill.
Thank
All right,
you.
listeners, thank you for your time and attention today. All of Jill's links will be in the show notes. If you are someone who has creative ideas that you've wanted to bring to life after your divorce, and even if you haven't thought about that before today, this might be a good time to think about it. Like, I think creativity is required in any level of growth, anything we're doing, whether it's dating or business or our health, nutrition. So just really think about, are there things that you have had on your bucket list that you wanted to work on? Or just connect with Jill just because she's awesome. We can do that too.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and attention, everyone. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.